In a world of nonstop notifications, have you ever wondered how someone from the 1800s could focus better than you? We have the most advanced study tools in history, but we are more distracted than ever. We're told to multitask 24/7, but what if the real secret to learning 100x faster is from the past? Seriously, how did Joe March, with no internet, no laptop, and no college, build an insane level of knowledge from nothing? Today, we're breaking down her 3 forgotten habits for insane focus and resilience that are more important now than ever. We're going to reveal the timeless strategies that let her turn a boring attic into a deep work chamber, a tiny library into a universe of ideas, and crushing failure into her biggest win. These aren't just old habits from a book. This is the ultimate blueprint for anyone trying to win in a world that's trying to steal your attention. First up is the most powerful habit you can steal from Joe March, creating a sacred space for single tasking. For Joe, this was the attic. When she went up there, she wasn't just changing rooms, she was flipping a switch in her brain. She even had a uniform, her scribbling suit, which told everyone and her own mind that she was entering her vortex. Inside that vortex, the entire world disappeared. She forgot to eat, time didn't exist, and the only thing that mattered was the mission in front of her. This was not multitasking, it was monotasking. It was a complete immersive dive into one single thing, a state we now call deep work. Jo wasn't checking on her sisters or looking at a buzzing phone. Her only companions were her pet rats, who, unlike your notifications, didn't demand an instant reply. She built an environment where extreme focus was the only option. She would even position her cap to signal to other people if they could talk to her or not. It was a 19th century do not disturb sign. Today, a quiet attic feels like a complete fantasy. We study in chaotic dorms and noisy coffee shops, but the principle is exactly the same. To get insane focus, you have to build your sanctuary. It doesn't have to be a room, it can be a set of rules. For the next challenge, try putting your phone in another room for 90 minutes straight. Or maybe you have specific playlists that tells your brain it's time to grind. Or just like Joe, you could have a study uniform, a certain hoodie you only wear when it's time to get serious. The goal is simple: make focusing easy and make distractions impossible. Joe's ritual made focus automatic. By creating your own simple, repeatable ritual, you are literally programming your brain to enter that deep work vortex, where learning becomes an adventure. You are committing to one thing so intensely that the rest of the world just vanishes. Joe's next defining trait is her insane intellectual independence.
A formal university education was impossible for women back then, but she didn't see a closed door. She saw a challenge. So she built her own education. This is our second habit, becoming unbelievably resourceful. Jo was a self-taught beast who knew learning doesn't just happen in a classroom. Her university was literally her dad's library and books she borrowed from her aunt. She read everything she could find: history, travel, biographies, novels. This wasn't just passive reading. She didn't just read books, she devoured them. Every book was a tool to expand her vocabulary and see worlds beyond her own. She was constantly sucking up inspiration from stories and language and mixing them into her own work. This is a 200 IQ strategy we now call interleaving, mixing different subjects to build bigger, more flexible knowledge. Jo didn't just study one thing until she was bored. She jumped between her writing, her reading, and just observing the world. This cross-pollination of ideas is what made her so original. She wasn't just memorizing facts, she was connecting them in new ways. For us, this is a huge lesson. We get stuck on our one major, only reading what the teacher assigns. To study like Jo is to break out. I challenge you to wander into the library and grab a book on a topic you know zero about. Read biographies to see how the smartest people in history actually lived, not just what they discovered. See every documentary, every conversation, every walk outside as a chance to level up your brain. Jo didn't have unlimited resources, but she squeezed every drop of value from the one she had. She proves the quality of your learning isn't about your school, it's about your curiosity. I want you to be intellectually greedy. Read outside your field, fill notebooks with observations, build your own curriculum based on what you're obsessed with, and you'll end up with an education that's 100% your own. Jo's path to success was not a straight line. It was a messy, heartbreaking, and ultimately epic journey paved with failure. Her ability to push through is the third habit we need to master, building resilience when you get knocked down. Before she found her voice, Jo wrote cheesy stories for money, the kind that paid the bills but were total garbage. She faced non-stop criticism, from publishers who rejected her to her friend Professor Bear, who challenged her to write something real.
Can you imagine pouring your soul into your work only to have it rejected, or even worse, destroyed? Jo lived this. In a crazy plot twist, her own sister got mad and burned her book of fairy tales, the only copy that existed. It was gone, forever. It was a devastating blow, and for a moment she gave up, but she never, ever stayed down. Every rejection, every critique became a lesson. Her grit wasn't about never failing. It was about refusing to let failure be the end of the story.
She had what we now call a growth mindset. She didn't believe her talent was fixed. She saw it as a muscle that got stronger every time she practiced and revised. She read her work to her family, took their feedback, and marched back to her attic to rewrite it again and again. Her biggest success as a writer only came after she dealt with her deepest grief, the loss of her sister Beth, and channeled that raw emotion into a story that was 100% true. The world loved it because it was real. This is a massive lesson for any student. We're trained to fear bad grades and criticism. To study like Jo is to see failure as data. A failed exam isn't the final verdict. It's a diagnostic tool showing you exactly what to review. A confusing topic isn't a brick wall. It's a side quest inviting you to ask a better question. Embrace revision. Just like Jo rewrote her stories, you have to rewrite your understanding. Try to explain a concept to a friend. If you can't, you haven't won yet. Redo the problems you got wrong. Treat your studies not as a performance to be judged, but as a craft to be mastered. Jo's resilience teaches us that you only achieve mastery by embracing failure, learning from it, and always picking up the pen again. I know what you're thinking. I don't have an attic or a quill pen. But we don't have to trade our laptops for candles to use Jo's wisdom. The key is to adapt her principles, not just copy her methods. Jo's attic was just a 19th century website blocker. For you, that could mean using an app like Freedom or Cold Turkey to create your own digital vortex where distracting sites literally disappear. You are using technology to build the same boundaries Jo built with a physical door. Her resourcefulness with a small library can be your strategy for the internet. Instead of falling down a rabbit hole of useless content, be strategic. I challenge you to curate your own digital library of high-quality resources. Follow experts in your field, subscribe to academic journals, and use tools like Zotero or Notion to organize everything you find. The internet can be your ultimate library if you use it with a mission. And finally, Jo's grit is how we handle getting a bad grade. Instead of being depressed about it, use it as a reason to get feedback. Go to your professor's office hours, form a study group, and find the gaps in your knowledge. Jo used her family as her feedback squad. Go find yours. The goal isn't to abandon the modern world, but to bring Jo's timeless principles of focus, resourcefulness, and resilience right into it and dominate. Studying like Jo March isn't about some cozy candlelit vibe, even though that is a pretty cool vibe. It's about adopting a winner's mindset. It's about realizing that the greatest tool for learning isn't your computer. It's your own focused, disciplined, and unstoppable mind.
The three principles we've talked about, the focus of a private sanctuary, the autonomy of a resourceful learner, and the resilience of a growth mindset are the cheat codes to lasting achievement in any field. Jo March teaches us that your true power doesn't come from the tools you have, but from your dedication to your craft. It comes from the quiet hours spent grinding, the courage to think for yourself, and the strength to turn your biggest struggles into your greatest story. By embracing her spirit, we can learn to tune out the noise, find our own vortex, and build a life of purpose, one win at a time. This is Peak Razor. Let's build productivity systems that win daily.